Hi there, thanks for listening. This is Deborah Pardes speaking on Voices of Swell, which is a swellcast that's focusing on conversations with individuals around the world who are really shaping society and helping people stretch their understanding of what's going on in the world. And it is February 27th. I'm speaking to you from Los Angeles, and I'm about to speak to Onir, who is a very celebrated film and TV director in India. He's best known for his work with my brother Nakhil, who was a character based on Dominic D'Souza, and the 2005 film really examined a family's reaction to a son with AIDS. Onir is an openly gay director, and what's so amazing about conversations is the context in which we have them. Because this past week, Onir has been speaking out against the Delhi government, who basically delegitimized gay marriage. Marriage in India now is perceived as a union only between two individuals, but not just at a societal level, but now at a biological level. And I'm going to read you two quotes that Onir shared with us this past week on Twitter. He said, "Here we go. Now they want to curb LGBTQI rights. The center conveniently forgets that no cultural definition can be greater than human rights, equality, and dignity." He goes on to say, "Sometimes when I see my friends across different religion silent when it comes to LGBTQ rights, I am once again faced with the harsh truth about how lonesome our journey has been." Onir, I say hello to you in solidarity from Los Angeles. The queer voice here is strong, but obviously our need to amplify our message is stronger. It needs to be stronger than ever to support you, who is so many thousands of miles away today. So I guess before we even go into what I originally was going to talk with you about, which was just the overarching themes of your career, I want to jump right into the circumstance you're in today and what's going on with the news, what's going on with you, what's going on this weekend, what's the buzz on the ground, and in your personal circle of artists and friends, what are you guys talking about in response to this conversation happening at the national level?
Hi, this is Onir, and thank you for the very kind introduction. Actually, it's been a very disappointing past few days, and especially, there have been many things that's been happening in the country which has been disappointing, and generally, as an artist, as a human rights activist, been something that is very, very disturbing to see how human rights in different aspects of life are being violated. What happened 2 days back when the center opposed gay marriages, to allow gay marriages to be recognized in India, is rather sad, because it has been after a long struggle that finally in 2018 that gay sex was decriminalized, but we were still far away from being treated as equal citizens, because we still do not have the civil rights, and the rights to partnership, the rights to marriage, which also because of which one can have access to many other rights. And I feel that as a citizen of a democratic country, why should my sexuality make me unequal to any other citizen in this country? And I feel it's a step back, and it's very disheartening, because it's not that I was planning to get married as soon as it was legitimized, but the fact that one is denied of the choice, one is thought of as a lesser human being, and this definition itself is so stupid, where one that has been quoted by the center center that only a biological man can get married to a biological woman, and the whole idea is procreation, whereas it really is also ridiculous because there are people who cannot conceive, and that does not mean they cannot get married. Also, it denies gay couples the right to adopt children, which is rather sad. Uh, I feel, and also like what I mentioned in my tweet, what I feel that being a human rights activist, I've been talking about minority rights, farmer rights, various things that's being discussed in the country today. But the minute when it comes to queer rights, I see that people are not as comfortable supporting our causes. The very people who send me on Twitter, on my inbox, saying that, Onir, would you raise your voice against this, will be suddenly silent when it comes to the journey of queer person, because some people because of religion, some people because of society forget that their humanity should be greater than the fear of whatever tag or whatever they believe that their religion specifies.
It's great to hear your voice here, and you're so right in identifying that specific situation where people lean on you to help them. And then when it comes to the queer issue, they get squirmy and uncomfortable. And we hope this changes. We hope that it normalizes. But then these events happen where we see so clearly that there is such stigma and such misunderstanding. And, we can hashtag love is love as much as we want, but in the end of the day, it takes the one-to-one relationships for people to understand what this issue is really about. And last night, I watched My Brother Nakhil, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, by the way. And I watched it with great respect for your ability to tell this story at the time you told it. And I want to ask you now, so many years later, as someone walking the streets, being respected and in conversation now, can you take us back to the days of you as a filmmaker creating that stunning work for people to really indulge in, meaning that they had to see it with these beautiful actors and this beautiful cinematography, and they had to deal with it because you gave them such an entree, because it's a good film. Forget the issue. It's a good film. And take me back to when you were selling that film to the actors and to the producers and to the people putting money behind it. How were you able to do that? How were you able to galvanize their trust in you when a film like that really hadn't been made before? Can you, because we're so interested in you as a filmmaker, and we're interested in that experience as what it was like to build the community to support the creation of that film.
Yes, Deborah, I think one thing that you've rightly said is that it's very difficult to find voices, even of friends, even of people one knows, to come out in support publicly for queer voices. And but I always make it a point to tell that my support for any human rights issue is unconditional of whether the other person supports our rights or not. Having said that, the pronunciation of the name of the film is My Brother Nikhil. Nikhil is the right way of pronouncing it. I'm trying to think that, what was it that made, first of all, what was the need need within to make this film as my first film in 2005 when I did, and as you rightly pointed out, at that point there was no such reference. And I think growing up as a gay person in India, at that point was like firstly childhood in Bhutan, and then I came to India. It was not really easy because in school my identity was missing in textbooks, be it in geography, in history. I was non-existent. I was non-existent in cinema, in the cinema of the country. I think the first film that addressed LGBTQI issues, had queer characters, that I saw was very late in day when I was in college, and I saw My Beautiful Laundry by Hanif Qureshi, and that kind of really, for the first time I felt that finally I'm watching a film that is telling my story, and I felt moved. And I also realized that, I don't see us in our films, in our advertisement, in our books, in our stories, in our art, and that was this huge missing. And at one point, one learns how to accept oneself, and then one has to have this entire journey of how to make the rest of the society accept you. And I always wonder that it was never difficult for me to accept the heteronormative world, but why is it so difficult? I keep getting invited to all these seminars to talk about inclusion, and I'm always wondering that why is it so much of an effort for the heteronormative world to accept us? We accept them and for who they are. So why is it so difficult? Uh, when I was making this film, actually, I think it was what really pushed me towards trying to find how a way to do this film is this need to talk about who we are, our story, to find us an instrument of dialogue, because after the film was released, for years and years, and even now, many NGOs, many queer organizations use the film to start dialogues in school, colleges, with families. And I think somewhere within me that need must have been there. And when I wrote the story, it just moved me so much, the story of Dominic D'Souza, that I thought that yes, this needs to be made into a film. And what I was very conscious about is how can I reach out to an audience that is not really comfortable with this identity, with this story. And I thought that let me present it in a way where the family becomes the center, and we see the gay character through the eyes of the sister, which is a very celebrated kind of relationship in India. So the film, I didn't call it My Lover Nikhil, but I called it My Brother Nikhil. And and like when we were trying to, I think what was kind of relatively easy was kind of getting the cast. The process started with my business partner and friend Sanjay Suri, who is also an actor, who read the script, and he just fell in love with the script and said, I really don't care about if this is not a great move in terms of my career, but I feel that this is a character that is timeless, and I want to, as an actor, challenge myself and do this thing. And he felt that when he read the script, it didn't matter to him that the character was gay. He was crying, and he could empathize with the character. And once he was attached to the film, he, introduced me to Juhi Chawla, who plays the lead character, the sister. And also read the script. And I think all the actors, what really moved them was the script, because at the time, because it was my first film, they had not really seen my work. But when they saw another actor trust me, like Sanjay's trust on me as a director, then they also felt a little bit more sure. And of course the script moved me, but it was very difficult for Sanjay and me to get any traditional finance for the film. Studios refused, and finally we just, friends and all of us put together the monies and shot this film, because all of us felt that this should be made. And then the bigger challenge came is how to distribute it, because I remember going to studios, big studios, and they would all look at the film and some of them would say, are you showing me the rushes? And it was very humiliating to be, told idiotic things like that. Or someone would say that, is this a documentary that we are watching? So you had people who didn't know the difference between rushes and a documentary and a feature film, judging whether my film should be distributed in cinemas. And ultimately, after months of trying and after months of refusal, we finally were actually very fortunate that Yash Raj Films, which is a very well-known distribution company, finally agreed to release the film. However, uh, I feel that, what has been always disappointing and sad is how different platforms and television channels which celebrate, especially the international ones, which celebrates gay rights, celebrate my film every year during Pride Month and World AIDS Day and all that, for years refused to buy the film, to have the film on the platform, and when they finally have it also, it is for, the commercials are so bad that till today, I have hardly managed to recover the cost of the film, despite it being such a celebrated film, having traveled the world. So the journey of me as a filmmaker making these kind of films have been extremely difficult, but what keeps me going is that I believe that these films have the power to change lives, even if it's a few. Those few lives are precious. The difference it makes to those people, it's precious. And maybe to be able to face these challenges and still make one's film is what one drives me as a filmmaker to negotiate and, finally make the film that one wants. I'm sorry, I might be sounding a little scattered because I'm not used to this format of conversation, but I'm learning.
I want to posit an idea here that just came up when I was listening to you about, people handling the conversation. And in so far as pain versus pleasure, because this past weekend you're seeing that they can't handle the idea of the equanimity of marriage for gay and queer people. And it reminds me of when I was back in college as a young gay woman. I was struck by how many people were moved by the AIDS epidemic in New York City as something that they can actually get their they can get around it, because pain is universal in a strange way. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is it easier to handle the pain of the gay community than handle the celebration and the joy of the gay community and the queer community? Because pain is something that, oh my God, it's something that has drama to it. But the everyday 5 o'clock on a Tuesday when you want to make dinner with your partner and call them your wife or husband, and people want to say, well, that's only relegated for heteronormative worlds. So I think we're in a struggle here to show, yes, we've had discrimination. Yes, we were scourged by the disease of AIDS. But guess what? We also want to celebrate and be happy and be seen in that light. So do you feel in the context of celebration, your ability to create films to show the joy of this world and to show the celebration and not just the normality of it, because that's keeping it down at a low base level. I'm talking about the extreme joy, because for many years in cinema, that the strange lesbian woman would always die in the end of the show. Something would happen to her. She couldn't possibly have a happy life. So can you speak to the normalization of the joy of the queer community?
I think it's it's quite relevant that you're asking me this today, because I'm just working on my next film, which is called We Are, And this is a sequel to a film that I had done in 2011 called I Am, which was about identity. And yes, I understand that what you call, this whole thing that beat my brother Nikhil, and even in I Am, because I Am was made at a point when homosexuality was criminalized by law. So it was important to portray what the law does, and unfortunately, that was not a happy story either. But I understand the importance of celebrating love, celebrating life, celebrating the beautiful moments, and that's why I decided that uh, after the Supreme Court verdict, which decriminalized homosexuality in 2018, I need to make a film that celebrates love. So I decided, and right now we've just kind of finished working on the script on a film which will be called We Are, which is basically a film that has four interconnected stories shot in four different parts of India, and each story celebrates a different form of queer life and love. There are films that end with hope and happiness, and like for example, the first story is a gay love story. The second one is a love story of a trans woman with a third one is a lesbian love story, and the fourth one is the story of a bisexual man. And each of these stories are inspired by real life incidents, and they are stories which, for me, it was important that, okay, now by law we are legalized to have sex. But these stories are talking about life, about being, of love, of being together, of the need to be recognized in society, that they have been as couples, as people who have different, have their lives beyond their sexuality. And when I talk of this, I also need to refer back to another film of mine which was released in 2017, which was just before homosexuality got decriminalized. It was a film called Shab, which means night, and the film had many gay characters who were not really fighting for their identity, but were like the heterosexual characters in the film, searching for love, happiness, different kinds of crisis and relationships that they were going through. And when I presented the film to the Film Certification Board, they objected by saying, and I still remember that because it was also kind of humiliating, that they looked at me and said that how can we allow children to watch this film because you have shown the gay characters as normal. And it was kind of, it really hit me that look at the audacity of these people who are sitting there and looking at an out and proud gay filmmaker and telling me that the problem with my film is that my gay characters have been presented as normal. And it took me months and months and months to fight with the Film Certification Board to finally get the film certified. I had to delete certain things to be released. And again, it was a struggle with different platforms to get the film accepted, so I feel we also don't get the kind of support one needs from studios, from the industry to be able to tell the stories.
I'm so sorry you went through that experience, and it's not the last time, I'm sure, and your tenacity and your bravery and your sense of purpose drive you beyond those horrible moments. But you have our compassion and love. When I say our, I think all listeners here would feel frustrated for you. I want to talk a little bit about your understanding of marginalized communities that go beyond the queer community, because in your film company, Anti-Clock, you very recently released Widows of Vrindavan, and that focuses on mothers who are separated from their families because of a very complicated and it seemed very lonely journey in pursuit of a divine love, as you call it. And there's a point where a mother renounces her family and her son, and I feel like that is such a mirror to families renouncing their queer children. And here a mother renounces her family because they don't understand her. And it's no accident that you have chosen this as a topic to give energy and time and your resources to. Can you talk about choosing to make this particular documentary? And I will link it here so that people can see it. It's fascinating, and I know very little about it. So thank you for having patience and explaining what this world is.
Uh, I think, yes, you're right. The reason for making Widows of Vrindavan is somewhere, there are constantly a lot of young people from the queer community who messaged me, called me, or even write to send me emails, and there is this constant fear of being disowned by family, and the stories of all these mothers, all the women who are living in Vrindavan, the widows mostly, are people who are kind of disowned by their family. They're kind of, suddenly after the death of their husbands, uh, their very old children around whom their entire life has been centered, unfortunately, suddenly make it impossible for them to continue living. And, for me, it was really interesting that also how we create uh, a different family. When I see them living in this ashram shelter house, and where there are different kinds of equations between the widows, between the women who are staying there, I'm a little conflicted at times. Do I call them mothers? Do I call them women? Do I call them widows? Because so much, because very often the names also have always connotations of a male, uh, but they like to be defined as mothers. So I'll stick to that maybe. Uh, I find that they form another structure of family, and I've always also tell and believe in it very strongly that for the queer community, the fear of losing one's family is so big in a place like India that very often it stops you from asserting your identity and being who you are. And I keep telling everyone that if you cannot be yourself with your family, that means the love that you are, attaching yourself to, that you are refusing to give up, or you're afraid to lose, is a love that does not exist, because your family loves the person that you are not in reality the same person. And if your family can't love you for who you are, then maybe it's not worth it, and then maybe it's important for you to find newer definitions of family, different structures of family that give you love, respect, and dignity. Uh, to me, somewhere I felt very, very close to uh, the mothers there in Vrindavan, their solitude, their loneliness there, and also how very often they create this narrative that they're the ones who rejected uh, the family, it kind of gives them that power, that and also more dignity, that they are not the ones who were thrown out, but at some point they also kind of rejected their homes. But and also there is this entire notion that they're living here in Banaras, which is supposed to be a holy place, to be closer to God. But deep within, you realize that all of them, that God and devotion is just an excuse to hide their loneliness. To given a choice, they would, if they were respected and loved, they all would have rather lived with their families. Also, I think what attracts me as a person towards any marginalized community, and not just from the queer community, is the fact that I strongly believe that as voices, unless we all give each other strength and recognize each other's journey and struggle, we will never be strong enough. In 2016, I had produced a film called Chauranga, means four colors, which was talking about the Dalit identity, which is quote unquote considered to be the lower caste in a rural setup. And for me, I think somewhere deep inside, I feel I'm not telling the story of the other. I'm telling, in a way, my own stories through various other marginalized communities also, because at the end of it, the kind of oppression we face might, the reasons could be, it's kind of similar in the oppressor is the same, and it is the refusal to accept inclusion and diversity that this power game happens. And I feel it's not an effort, it just happens because I feel very, very strongly about it. I also made another documentary which is called Raising the Bar, which is a documentary about young children and young adults living with Down syndrome in India and Australia. And again, the reason for doing it is I feel the film is a celebration of diversity, and I very often am always thinking that why is it so difficult to just give a little bit of kindness and love to another human being. And it can make so much of difference to another person's life. And what stops us from doing that?
It's so sad. It's a sad statement that they would rather have lived with their families. And yes, those parallels are so prevalent because people have the fighting spirit and they're married to the fight, but in their hearts, they just want peace and they just want love. We all want to be loved. And that's the message you convey. And I think all your work is that it comes down to love and the many flavors and shapes of love. And I just think it's so important that you were able to show these women in the same gentle, powerful light that you have done with the queer community. You and I now have been talking for an hour, thousands of miles away through this wonderful platform. And I just feel like this can go on for a long time. And I'm hoping that you can create conversations on your Swellcast and use the collaborative, creative spirit of your community to connect and talk and move issues forward. And to that end, I want to ask you in closing this one interview, and I hope we have more on different channels, on your channel. If I was there, I'd have coffee with you. But I would love for you to tell us now, what would you like us to look out for in your career? How would you like us to support you? What things would you like us to do to make sure that your work is seen, and be as specific as you need to be so that we can know what to do and in terms of where to go online and what to look forward to. And it's just so wonderful to deeply celebrate an artist. And we're here to do that with you, and you celebrate us. So it's a very beautiful infinity loop. So looking forward to hearing what you have to say, and looking forward to hearing your voice here in the future. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Deborah, for this conversation. It was nice to have a good ear listening to you. Uh, I've been also trying to figure out how to continue, because it's one of the biggest challenges that I find as a filmmaker is how to first generate funds for the kind of films I want to do. For example, VR that I'm doing right now, I'm still trying to figure out the Indian part of the finance, because though my film this is a sequel to that, received 2 national awards and again was highly celebrated, but every platform I approach or studio I approach, they're not really willing to touch this film. But I want to make it, and I know I will. So right now I'm in talks with a Canadian production house to try and make it like an Indo-Canadian project. So I feel that right now as an artist, I'm increasingly looking at possibilities of international collaboration. And that's difficult also because, I don't have the kind of financial backing to be able to just go for some time and spend some time in pursuing possible finance partners, be it in Hollywood or in other film industries. But I feel that that is increasingly one of the few options that I have to how make what I do, especially now with the new laws of censorship that has come up, which is extremely, extremely distressing as a filmmaker, the do's and don'ts about how you cannot speak up for whatever is perceived to be anti-government, anti-police, anti-military, anti-courts. I mean, the list is just endless, anti-religion. So I mean, you cannot offend anybody's sentiment, but I think everybody has the right to offend the sentiments of an artist. So suddenly the narrative that as an artist you are supposed to speak is being controlled because you are being told what all you can't talk about. So there is very little space, and one has to negotiate within that space. So increasingly for filmmakers like me who anyway are not making mainstream content, it becomes even more difficult because finance bags think that it could be potentially difficult to fund this kind of films. So yes, the only thing I really don't know, but I feel that just to spread the word around, to when one's work is recognized outside the country, somehow we are valued more as an artist back here. So uh, I try and visit different universities across the world, talk about my films, talk about the struggle as an independent queer filmmaker in India. And I feel, yes, probably platforms like this, conversations like this might help one reach out to, people who might be interested in one's work, and to support those who believe that it is important that, queer rights, unfortunately for politicians, queer rights does not matter when it comes to international relationships. What matters is military ties and economic ties, and then suddenly human rights take a back seat. And I feel that more and more people from across the globe need to stand up for the violation of human rights in other countries. Once again, thank you for this conversation, and I look forward to more. Thank you.